This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
All this week, we have a 5-part series, a conversation with Adam Cox and Rex Connor. Adam is the brother to Lori Vallow Daybell. Rex is Lori Vallow Daybell's uncle. And they certainly have stories to share about their life and times with Lori Vallow Daybell leading up to the murders of her children and her ex-husband and the many other suspicious deaths that have surrounded her life.
I mean, as a kid, I mean, I felt like I had a great childhood. We had a nice house in a golf course community. I played sports all the time. I had tons of friends. We went on family vacations. Obviously we had fun together. We had sibling fights. I mean, pretty much it was just a normal childhood. Mm-hmm. And so I know people think that, or we've been criticized to have some kind of crazy family, but things didn't happen until after everybody grew up, as far as I knew. But so, I mean, pretty regular childhood.
Nothing you look back on and go, oh, there was a lot of trauma here or anything like that. Just mainly normal family, growing up type stuff is what you're saying.
Yeah. Just like any other normal family who has 5 kids, growing up.
Sure. Rex, when you look at it, being the uncle, how did you see life in the house over there as they were kids?
Well, we lived basically around the corner from each other when Adam was growing up and his siblings. By the time Lori came along, I left for college when she was, maybe a year or two old. But Adam has 2 older siblings. We had a lot of interaction. I was there a lot. Adam recognizes that as his normal upbringing. It was a very, as he described, with any family of 5 kids, chaotic. Very open environment. Almost everything went. Any discussion, they're open about each other's flaws, the good, the bad, the ugly. Mm-hmm. So it was, if every family has a degree of dysfunction, theirs was no exception to that. We all have areas that we think are normal till we look around at everyone else and say, my family's not quite like that.
Sure.
And, since we all had that, I know people, when you get a family put in the spotlight as a Cox family has been, and people just dissect it from a distance, not knowing it, hearing little bits from here and there from people that knew them, people who are in the house, you have to fill in with a lot of conclusions. So we've heard a lot of conclusions drawn. And yes, it was a different environment than a lot of families.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, of course, there's every time there was a little bit of information that's coming out, especially when the case was in trial and before everything even led to that, everything was being read into. I'm sure you probably rolled your eyes 1,000 times at many of those things, but of course, you work in media too, Adam, so you understand how that can work. Let me ask you this. Was religion a significant part of your life growing up? I know you grew up LDS, but obviously when we look at what eventually happened here with Lori, a very, bastardized version of religion became part of her life. But prior to that, when it was just normal life growing up, was that a big part of life for y'all?
I mean, yes, it was. We all went to church, but I feel like we were a little bit different than some families as far as, like Rex said, being more open and not being as strict.
Okay.
So we had more, we said what we wanted to. And, there's some people who, we watched movies that probably some people shouldn't watch, like rated R movies that in the LDS that people weren't allowed to watch or weren't supposed to watch rated R movies or whatever. Mm-hmm. But we ended up watching, some of those. And We didn't have like family home evening every single Monday like some families did. We weren't strict,
Yeah.
but we all had testimonies. Everybody had testimony of the church growing up, and we all went to church, and we all, were active. So.
And it was just fairly, from what you're saying, you just normal, you're going to church, your family's a little bit looser with the rules than others, and
Yep.
that's that. Nobody was over the top into it, if you will.
No, not. I mean, everybody has their own. Everybody has their own testimony.
Sure.
And some are stronger than others, but I think overall that was the feeling that I got.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about your relationship. I'll start with you, Adam. With Lori growing up, were you guys close? No, from some things I've heard you were. Tell me about that dynamic.
Yeah, we were close. I mean, she was close to me in age. She liked to play sports. I liked to play sports. I used to teach her how to play sports. We would, as a family, we would, go swimming and, like I said, go on family vacations, watch TV, just normal stuff. And, you get a bond with a sibling.
Mm-hmm.
Alex was my older brother, and he, at a younger age, was into sports, and then he got out of sports. And so him and I didn't have that same connection, but Lori did. And so we played a lot and talked a lot, and we became pretty close.
Rex, how about you? What was it like being uncle to little Lori?
I loved my relationship with all of my nieces and nephews, but particularly the Coxes, because I had the most of my nieces and nephews, most interaction with them. And so even when they became young adults, more adults than young adults, of course, we lived in different places, not as much interaction, but I had a good relationship. I come to town, we'd talk. When my wife and I went to Hawaii, to see family. When Janice and Lori were living over there, we stayed with Lori in her home. And so it was a good relationship. When I tell people about the tragedy that happened, they say, "Oh, is this a distant relative?" And I'm not ashamed to say, or I don't hesitate to say, no, this was a close relative. We had a close relationship.
Yeah. And I want to talk about, how all of that's affected you guys over the years, and how that, slowly trickled into life, and how you guys started to see some things and notice things. We'll get to that in just a little bit. What was the relationship that Lori had like with others? Let's start with your parents, Adam. When you reflect on that as a brother and you saw that, how would you describe it looking back on it?
I guess pretty normal. The only part that it started to, when Lori was, I think, a senior in high school, she started hanging out with a guy and ended up getting married to him, her first husband. And she ended up, I think, drinking or doing drugs or something with him.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom and dad were not happy about it and told her to get home. And here she is getting married. But she put a restraining order on my mom and dad.
Oh, wow.
And then I think 2 or 3 weeks later, she came back to the house and apologized and got an annulment and said she made a big mistake and all that. So that was one of the big rifts I think that they had. But since that had happened, I think she's been really close to both my mom and dad.
Did that come as a shock? I mean, to suddenly go and get married, and then there's a restraining order. I mean, it seems like such extreme behavior. I mean, granted, we've all been that age. We've all done plenty of dumb, extreme things. So it's hard to say that was that much more extreme than other things that some of us have done too. But looking back, knowing what we know now, it seems like quite a shift in personality, and then a shift back to kind of who you all knew.
Yeah, exactly. And, I've told this before, but I imagine like Lori was a cheerleader. She's fun, good personality. She's good looking. She has all these things going for her. I really thought that she was going to marry like an NFL quarterback or somebody like my vision was like, oh, she's going to end up with somebody like that. And that never happened. Yeah. So yeah, it went basically the opposite of that. And I don't know why that happened like that.
It almost like she could kind of take her pick of whoever she wanted to, is just be a decent person, and you'll likely be able to kind of get almost anywhere. Let me. How was your relationship with some of your other siblings, like Summer, for example, in childhood?
Childhood. Well, Summer was the baby, and so she was very protective of herself because she was the baby and got picked on, I guess. So she came out firing sometimes. My friends would come over and, we would instigate something, and then she would scratch their arms and that kind of thing. Yeah. So she was definitely more of a fireball than Lori was when it came to growing up. Mm-hmm.
And there was your other sister as well, Stacy, who had passed away back in 1998. What was that relationship like while she was around?
Oh, Stacy was the best. Oh my gosh, I miss her so much. Straight A student, did everything right. Almost like in my mind, if I was to describe somebody perfect, it would be her. Mm-hmm. We had a great relationship, and just a genuine, really good person. And yeah, I miss her a lot.
What was Lori's relationship like with her?
Really good too. Yeah. Well, Lori ended up living with her in Texas together for a little bit, and Lori looked up to her a lot, I think.
There's more to come in my conversation with Adam Cox and Rex Connor about the life of Lori Vallow Daybell and the tragic twists that it takes leading up to the death of her children and many others around her. Be sure to press subscribe so you don't miss any of our conversation right here. I'm Tony Brueski. Stay with us.